I'm Mike of Mike and Allie's Vintage eBay and Etsy stores, and today it's all about railroads. If you've never visited our eBay or our Etsy store, we like vintage items. If you like vintage items, you're going to love our stores. We've got, of course, railroads, but we also have French decor, home decor, Christmas items, music, a lot of records, and we have books and magazines and much more. So make sure you check it out. And we've made it easy for you because we have the links down below to both the eBay and the Etsy store. Also a link to our model trains and real trains category in our eBay store as well. And take a moment and click like down below if you like this video, and click subscribe so you can see the future videos. Okay, I'm going to start with the books here I've got in front of me. I've got 3 of them to show you. This one here, I believe, is on both our eBay and Etsy stores. This is called Company Shops, the town built by a railroad, and it talks about how the city of Burlington, North Carolina came into existence and prominence thanks to the building of what was called the North Carolina Railroad. If I get time before this book sells, I'm going to sit and read it myself. Burlington, if you're not familiar with that town, sits just a few miles west of what we call the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. It's a pretty good sized town anymore. It's not a small town in this day and age. Up next, I've got the Orient Express. This covers the history of that famous passenger train that ran through Europe and I think parts of Asia and Africa as well. This book is from the 1980s, and I think this is only in our eBay store. I don't believe I have this one listed on Etsy. Not 100% sure on that. Great book, though. It's got lots of pictures throughout the book, and of course tells the story of the Orient Express. And if you're a fan of the Southern Pacific, got just the book for you. The history of the Southern Pacific. It starts in its beginnings as the Central Pacific Railroad. And again, a 1980s era book, and it goes up to the point where they were talking merger with the Santa Fe. Of course, that ultimately did not happen, and the Southern Pacific eventually wound up as part of Union Pacific, and that was, about 25 years ago. And again, I don't believe I have that one on our Etsy store. I think that's just in our eBay store only. Let's take a look at some magazines now. Got quite a few magazines, especially model train magazines, and I'll jump into those in just a second here. First off, though, got a couple of these. These are Ties magazines, and these were sent out by the Southern Railway, I think, to their employees. And it was a monthly magazine. This one is from December of 1952, and this one from March of 1968. They're really interesting to look through, especially if you're a fan of the old Southern Railway that ran throughout the southeastern United States. Here's another one. I always get these whenever they come out with a new one. It's a quarterly magazine. This is called TRP, or the Railway Press. If you're not familiar with them, they basically look at railroads from the past, and they seem to spotlight a lot of 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is great for me because I'm of the age where I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and that's where my railroading interest lies. So you see a lot of Conrail, Penn Central, Lehigh Valley, Norfolk and Western, people like that. This one is the 4th quarter of 2019. Got that one in our eBay store as well. We have quite a few model train magazines in our eBay store as well. Some of them in lots and some of them singles. I think this is a single one right here, this Railroad Model Craftsman from September of 1963. Have some other issues of theirs as well listed in our eBay store. You might be wondering, especially if you're new to the hobby, what interest or what usefulness would a magazine that's almost 60 years old, or in some cases over 60 years old, have? You might be surprised. There's a lot of useful information you can still find in some of these old model train magazines, especially if you're just getting into the hobby. Speaking of old, here's a couple of even older ones, 1959 for both of these. I've got a whole lot of these that I've got for sale together. I want to say about 10 or 15, something like that. These are model railway news. These are British. They cover British model railroading, and they were produced in Great Britain, and some of those found their way over here to the United States. And of course, the granddaddy of model train magazines is Model Railroader, and I've got a bunch of those from this year all the way back into the 40s and 50s that we've got in our eBay store, including these two right here. This one here is from August of 1950, and this one is from December of 1950. I've got them in these bags. They're a little bit brittle. You got to be careful with them, but again, you might be surprised at some of the information you'll find in there that you'll still find very useful 70 years later. Here's one where we do have a lot. I think these are 9 of them right here from the year 1965, all model railroaders. And I've got several from the different years of the 60s where we've got them divided into lots. And you can see those again in our eBay store. And then, of course, great model railroads. I think this might have been the first year that they offered that. If not, it was one of the early years. Annual publication that Model Railroader magazine puts out, 1992, the year for that one. Got a couple of videos here to show you. These are both VHS videos that we have in our eBay store. Yeah, there's a few of us that still have VHS players, and if you're one of those that do, or you run to your local Goodwill or thrift store and pick one up so you can watch these. This one here is called Today's Steam Across America. This was 1995 when it came out, and it has pictures or videos of excursions of steam locomotives that had formerly run on places like the Milwaukee, the Nickel Plate, the Frisco, and the Union Pacific. There's 2 tapes in here. I've watched parts of them. They work fine, and there's some really neat video there. Vintage steam locomotives. This one here, again, I've watched part of it. It does work. It's called Luxury on the Rails. And this one is from 2000. It's a little bit newer. It's the world of privately owned railroad passenger cars. Yeah, some of them get pretty fancy. It's another video. It's fun to watch. And if you win the lottery or something, it might be something you want to consider, your own luxury passenger car. Let's take a look at some of our model train items we have now. Reach over here. These are O-scale. O64 is what they're called. Ross Custom is the brand, and they're all 3 right-hand turnouts. These 2 are manuals. This one does have a switch box with it that just needs to be rewired into it, or you could use it as a manual switch as well if you so prefer. Let's take a look at some of the other items we have here. HO scale, the majority of it. I've got a couple of these still in boxes from 1980s era, probably, maybe late 70s. Union Pacific open hopper cars that Bachmann put out. Of course, the yellow, they're not prototype. The Union Pacific looked kind of like that, but the lettering was yellow and the car itself was brown. The nice thing about these, though, if you're a stickler for prototype, they're great for kit bashing. Also, if you do freelance railroading like I do, where you make up your own road name, hey, you just get you several of these. They're inexpensive, and you paint them, and you put your own lettering on them, and you don't have to do anything fancy to them. Put couplers on them, they're ready to go. Remember these? Tyco did all these back in the 1960s and 70s and early 80s. And we have a couple of them right here. 60-foot boxcars, HO scale, of course. A Hunt's Snack Pack and a Del Monte Sliced Peaches car. I have to admit, I was kind of tempted to keep them for my own railroad. But nope, we're going to put these on our eBay page. I think actually they're in our Etsy store as well, so either place you can go to and see them there for sale. They need a good home before I change my mind and put them on my layout. Here we go for the fans of Lionel. We've got this one right here, the Nickel Plate Road, 027 scale. I believe this is 1970s, maybe early 1980s. I believe this is when they were owned by General Mills or General Foods, based on the little logo there in the back corner of the car. So it's not like the really, really old Lionels. It's, well, of course, 1970s is getting to be really, really old anymore. That's 40 plus years. These are really, really old. These are both from the 1950s, these 2 Lionel gondolas. And I do have both of these on both eBay and Etsy, so you can check them out on either store. And let's see, one of these is from the early 50s, which I believe that's this one here, and this one is from the mid to late 1950s. You'll notice this one here's got a slightly different type of coupler than what you normally see on most Lionels, but it is compatible. It will hook up with the other ones. So, you know, and if you don't like it that way, you can always change them out for the proper type. Some people will do that. Back to HO scale. And this is one, I have to admit, every time I look at it, I think, you know, maybe I'll just take it off and keep it for myself, but I haven't yet, so you may want to jump on this one real quick. It's a 40-foot wood reefer, Banger and a Rustic Railroad with their famous State of Maine potatoes paint scheme. I believe this was a Roco or AHM car. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's who that was. I should have looked that up. Shame on me. I love the way that whoever had this previously, though, weathered it. It looks great. They did a great job. And all it needs is, of course, got the horn hook couplers. Just needs to have those cut off and put on some KDs or similar types and wheels on it. And that'd be a good-looking car for any model railroad. This one here, I do know the brand, Pimco. Pimco was not around very long, early 1980s. And I think, if I remember right, they had something to do with both Tyco and AFX, Aurora, the people that did all the slot car stuff. It's a 60-foot Union Pacific boxcar. I guess you could say it's a bit of a collector's item. I think this had the truck-mounted couplers originally. Looks like they've been cut off, and at one point KD couplers were body-mounted. The boxes are still on it, but the couplers are missing. But it's not a big deal. Those are easy to replace. Easy to put on. I do it all the time. Some track. I don't think Atlas even makes these anymore. This was kind of their answer to Bachmann's Easy Track. These are, of course, what they call True Track. These are Code 83, and these are 18-inch radius curves. There's 6 of them right here. I've also got a few 22-inch radius. I think 2 or 3 of those in another listing. And some short, like partial straight pieces as well in our eBay store. Don't believe those are on Etsy. Or if you do more of the old style track, here's some mixed pieces, all straight. There's also about 4 or 5 bumper tracks in here as well that are Atlas. And most of these, if not all of them, are nickel silver. And a lot of them look like they've never been used. But they're all straight pieces of varying lengths, and there's no curves in it whatsoever. Although I do have a separate listing of HO scale curves, and I think it is mostly nickel silver as well, but I think there might be a couple of brass pieces in there too. Here's our N-scale collection right here. We've got this little locomotive. It's a Bachmann along with the caboose, Santa Fe. I have tested it. It does run. It runs fine, and it probably should have the wheels cleaned a little bit. Might want to lube it up a bit as well, but other than that, it's ready to go. Just, again, depending on what's... They've got both types of couplers on it. They got the KDs and the standard N scale on it, so you can use it as a transition or just replace one of those so they match. So that gives you an idea of what we have in our model trains and real trains category in our eBay store, as well as some of these items also we have listed in our Etsy store too. Once again, take a moment, go down there and click like and subscribe. Also, the links to both our eBay and Etsy stores are below, and a link to our model trains and real trains category in our eBay store is down there as well. Once again, I'm Mike of Mike and Allie's Vintage eBay and Etsy stores. Thank you for taking a few minutes and watching this video. We'll have some more videos coming up, both myself and Allie. In fact, she's going to be doing one on French decor here real soon. Be on the lookout for that. And again, click like and subscribe so you'll know when that video comes up. Have a great day, everybody.